What's up, everybody? Boom. Bare Knuckle KnuckleMania 4 went down last night, and in this video, I want to recap the event, give my thoughts on it, break down some of the news that was aired during this event and this live broadcast, because ladies and gentlemen, BKFC is here, and they are here to stay. And not only that, if you have not tuned into a BKFC event, you're missing out, man. And I'm hopping on this thing on the YouTube side because I don't see many people covering it, and I'm going to start doing that because, ladies and gentlemen, I attended an event not that long ago in Lakeland, Florida. I watched David Mundell take on Mike the Marine Richmond. And ever since, I have just been captured and captivated by this sport because there is no boring fight inside of BKFC. And whether you know the fighters or not, it is just action-packed, and it is incredible to watch. And last night was no different. It was one of the best events that we've seen thus far. And not only that, I'm going to talk about the breaking news that that was aired on the pay-per-view side of things, and then I'm going to go through some of the fights on the card. But first, I want to mention, first and foremost, David Feldman, the CEO, the Dana White of BKFC, is one of those guys, when you hear this man talk, the confidence and just the way he goes about things, this thing's going to be very successful. And you just see it. They keep getting sanctioned in different states. They made their debut in California last night. This man is a wolf. He is a lion, and he is who Don Davis and these other guys and these other MMA organizations wish they could be. Shout out to David Feldman. He is doing an unbelievable job with BKFC. And their ring announcer, Mr. Live Worldwide, Jeff Houston, is absolutely outstanding. And this is what I was talking about in my video where I was breaking down how to save the PFL. Gotta have the energy. The BKFC organization understands it. They have an MC that's like ready for round 5. Like, they are doing everything the right way. But nonetheless, David Feldman's he's a dog, man, and he's got this thing rolling, and they broke some news last night that Conor McGregor is now going to be a part owner, with BKFC, and that is absolutely huge. And David Feldman in the post-fight presser, like what the UFC does, where they have Dana White do it, David Feldman does the same thing. They're taking the UFC model and applying it to their sport in BKFC. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're like, we know it works, we're going to do it, and they're doing a great job. And David Feldman says, look, man, anytime Conor McGregor does something, everything he touches turns to gold, and we want that here at BKFC. They have several events coming up. They're going to Mexico. They're just doing so many great things. This sport is sensational to watch, man. I've been tuning in, and I'm going to be a consistent viewer at this point, and I'm going to start covering this sport because it is absolutely, it's sensational. It's so fun to watch, and we'll start with the main event, right? The guy, man, Platinum Mike Perry. To see somebody have this type of resurgence, right? I mean, when have we ever seen, we saw when Anderson Silva kind of stepped aside from UFC and he goes over into boxing, takes on Julio Chavez. Like, we've seen some things happen where guys leave the sport, leave the UFC and do some great things. Platinum Mike Perry has done something that I don't think we've ever seen before. This man, when you think of bare knuckle boxing, bare knuckle fighting, you think of Platinum Mike Perry. Like, I can't think of a better fit of a particular athlete where you're like, who would fit BKFC? Like, the first person I think of is Mike Perry. I've been watching Mike Perry since his debut in the UFC. He's been a fantastic fighter. He's always been gritty, tough. He's never been in a boring fight. Mike Perry has never been in a boring fight. If you even go back and watch his amateur fights on YouTube, nothing about this guy is boring. He's good on the microphone. He gets the marketing game now. Congratulations to Mike Perry because he is the king of violence. He is the biggest name inside bare knuckle at this point. He's taking full advantage of the opportunity. He's now 5-0 inside the squared circle, man. And he's not only going out there and winning, he's finishing people for the most part, and he's doing it in exciting fashion, and he's getting better every single time, because what a lot of people fail to understand about BKFC is the bare knuckle is very different. They're like, oh, it's just boxing. No, it's very different. That's why a lot of these MMA guys are having a tremendous amount of success over inside BKFC. We've seen Eddie Alvarez. We saw Thiago Alves, who took on Mike Perry last night. We've seen Chad Mendez. These guys, you got to have a specific type of grit to you. And obviously getting in there with the bare knuckles, it's a totally different ball game, because we even see some very good, solid boxers that come over and they do BKFC and they don't have the same amount of success. Even if they win fights, they're in there with a guy who in a boxing ring probably wouldn't be able to, hang with them at all. And they're in there just getting outpointed. and they're getting picked apart because these guys are able to close them down, fight on the inside, and make it a dirty, grimy type of fight, which is what makes this thing so interesting. But nonetheless, Mike Perry is a superstar. He is the face of BKFC, and he is absolutely entertaining, man. His fights are crazy. Last night against Thiago Alves, he just marched him down, did not show Alves much respect at all. He took a good shot to kind of split him, on the cheek a little bit. But when we're talking about, bare knuckle, man, it doesn't take much to cut you open. So no harm, no foul there for Mike Perry. Just closes him down, lands a good short left hand on the inside, sits Alves down, and just from there, man, he wasn't able to get his equilibrium back. He stood up, Dan Miragliotta waved it off. He was just out of it. And Mike Perry, man, an absolute dog. He is the face of BKFC, rightfully so. Can't wait to see what he does next. I know that there's talks about him possibly getting a title shot against David Mundell, which that would be a crazy fight, seeing Mike Perry, fight for a belt at this point, because what's crazy, he headlined the card and there wasn't even a belt on the line. So that tells you Mike Perry is the guy. He's the guy that they're going to be pushing. But the resurgence of Mike Perry going and doing this other sport, taking it by the horns, running with it, sensational, man. Shout out to Mike Perry. He's a stud, and he's so fun to watch, man. Okay, moving on. The co-main event was Mick Terrill versus Lorenzo Hunt. This honestly was the fight I was looking forward to the most on the entire card, right? I know that Mike Perry is, he's kind of the guy that everybody are tuning into, but Lorenzo Hunt, man, this guy, he's one of the best bare knuckle fighters, period. I mean, I think he was 12-1 coming into this matchup. He's the cruiserweight champion, the light heavyweight champion, and he was going for a triple belt status, which we really haven't seen really anywhere, before. And he comes in there against a guy in Mick Terrill. I was worried about the size, right? Because with Mick Terrill, this is a real heavyweight. He's not the most exciting guy, but he's a solid, he's very composed in there, and you got to see that, and he just kind of weathered the storm, kind of was playing it safe, moving out of range. Lorenzo Hunt definitely had the speed advantage. He's a guy that is he's very explosive. If you've ever seen Lorenzo Hunt fight, man, even if he gets clipped, there was a fight where he got knocked down, and I'm like, this thing might be over. Gets up literally as soon as the referee sets him and says, knuckle up. The guy comes charging in, and Lorenzo ducks his head and throws a nasty right hand and starches the guy and puts him out cold. I think that was against Mike the Marine Richmond. So Lorenzo Hunt is an explosive athlete. He's very dangerous. They call him the Juggernaut for a reason. I was just disappointed the way it ended. He gets clipped with an uppercut on the inside, falls back, hand goes out. I think he dislocates his elbow brutally or whatever it was, so they had to stop it, which just an unfortunate ending, because I really wanted to see Lorenzo Hunt do something we haven't seen done before, go out there, win that third belt. But it sounded like in the post-fight presser, David Feldman wants to see him go back to light heavyweight, defend the belt there, and then kind of be in the cruiserweight side of things, because while Lorenzo Hunt did look big and he looked strong and explosive at heavyweight, he has the power that can translate. It's just some of the, even though he looked big, we got to see that there was a little bit of a difference in the size there with Mick Terrill. But nonetheless, Mick Terrill versus Ben Rothwell, who we're going to talk about in just a second here, that's the fight to make next. But shout out to Lorenzo Hunt, man. I hope that eventually he will get another shot to attempt for a heavyweight strap to go for the three-piece, because he's just a sensational fighter, man, and I love watching him fight. Okay, Ben Rothwell, Todd Duffee. Now, a lot of you MMA fans out there know, Ben Rothwell, Big Ben Rothwell has been around for an extended period of time. He's 2-0 in BKFC. Todd Duffee making his debut in BKFC. Anytime we see somebody make a debut in bare knuckle, you always have to kind of wonder, okay, how's this going to go? Because there's no gloves, and people are like, well, it's still fighting. It's a very, very different ball game. And we just saw Todd Duffee I don't want to say he quit, man, but what the hell happened in there? He's in there, he gets into a couple exchanges with Ben Rothwell. Every time he kind of got tripped up and fell down, got clipped with a good shot against Rothwell, and it seemed like the second exchange he falls back and points at his shoulder and just kind of gives this motion to Dan Miragliotta, which you can't do, because Miragliotta actually gave him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and was like, what's going on here? And because anytime you show the referee you cannot continue, they're going to wave it off. And the fight got stopped, and we didn't see an actual stoppage, right? It was just kind of something with his shoulder apparently or whatever. I don't know what happened with Todd, Duffee in there, but anytime we see that, you always have to question when they get in there and you get hit with the bare knuckles, man. it's a little bit of a different ball game because when you're training, you're not sparring, obviously, with people with bare knuckles. So, you know, when you don't have the MMA gloves on, you don't have the boxing gloves on, it's a totally different world. And sometimes we just see guys that are meant for this sport, and some guys, it's like, hey, man, you know, I'm a good athlete, but this is a little bit much for me. I think that was one of those situations that we saw last night because, you know, but shout out to Big Ben Rothwell. He was very upset, obviously. He wanted to go in there and put on a great performance. He still gets a stoppage win here, and I think that he's going to get that title shot next because he's one of the bigger names in the heavyweight division right now. And him versus Mick Terrill is a fun stylistic matchup. I still, at this point, would probably favor Mick Terrill. He's a little bit more technical, but that's what makes BKFC fun. Even if you're technical, you go in there against a guy who's maybe not as technical but can make it that dirty, grimy type of fight. You know, anything can happen. So that's what's so fun about BKFC. All right, Angulo versus Riggs. This fight was crazy. This fight was absolutely crazy. Jeremiah Riggs was putting it on Angulo early on. He was backing him up against the ropes, beating him up. Mike Beltran was taking a close look there. And Mike Beltran, I thought, was going to give a little bit more of a warning and kind of stop the fight for a minute because Riggs was grabbing the back of Angelo's head and kept ripping uppercuts and throwing dirty shots inside. And I'm like, that's kind of messed up, man. And Mike Beltran, I think, gave him a warning later on to where he stopped and his hair came out of the braids, man, because it kept being grabbed by Riggs. But nonetheless, Angulo, he just weathered the storm, man, hung in there. Riggs started to get tired, landed a nasty right hand, put him out bad. Sensational finish. That was one of the highlights of the night. Incredible finish on what was an entertaining card. Had some unfortunate stoppages due to injuries kind of at it that weren't really things that happened during the fight. Guys were falling weird or just weird things happen like we're going to talk about in the next fight. But nonetheless, this was definitely one of the fights that stood out on a stacked card. Kurdanov and Julian Lane. Julian, let me bang, bro, from The Ultimate Fighter. You know who this guy is, man. He has been a staple inside BKFC, one of the biggest names in the sport right now. Goes in there, gets a stoppage win. Kurdanov, something about a torn bicep maybe. That was really unfortunate because that fight was just kind of starting to get going because Julian Lane's a dog, man. He's one of those guys just like a Mike Perry. When you talk about a guy like who could translate and go into BKFC outside of MMA and do well, Julian Lane, man. You got to be a little nutso. You got to be a little crazy. Have that tenacity and that technical side to you. Julian Lane possesses that. He went in there last night, did his thing. Nonetheless, man, this was a great overall card. From top to bottom, even the prelims were outstanding. And another fight I'd like to talk about was Diaz and Jordan. Jordan came in, man, and he has that good technical boxing. This is what I was talking about. He loves to have that ability to sit on the outside, fight behind a jab. He was very much a boxer to where Diaz was just marching forward, trying to close him down, make him fight that dirty, stylistic fight. This fight ended in a draw, which, by the way, I didn't think it was a draw. I thought Diaz won the fight. I thought he was pressing the action. I thought he was landing a lot more shots. He had Jordan in a lot of trouble. Jordan started to get very tired in there, and then I just thought Diaz did enough to win the matchup. But nonetheless, outstanding fights from top to bottom by BKFC. This sport is incredibly entertaining. I love the direction they're going. I like David Feldman. I think he's doing a tremendous job. And obviously, how can you not like Platinum Mike Perry? And now that Conor McGregor's coming in as a part owner of this thing, man, sky is the limit with BKFC. They have a lot of events coming up. But nonetheless, man, BKFC is here to stay. And if you guys have not tuned in to watch any of these fights, man, and watch this sport, it's incredible. Hop on the train, before it's too late, man. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment your predictions, or not your predictions, but your thoughts on this card down below. I appreciate you all. See you next time.